The twin suns of the planet Kale Rin hung low in the sky, casting long orange shadows over the endless dunes. The wind swept across the desert plains, carrying with it fine particles of red sand that sparkled like tiny diamonds in the fading sunlight. At Outpost Red Mesa, a small human settlement carved into the jagged rocks of the northern canyon, life was harsh but familiar. Jace, a young cowboy with sun-browned skin and eyes the color of storm clouds, adjusted the straps on his weathered hoverbike. He had ridden these dunes hundreds of times, delivering supplies and maintaining the perimeter of the outpost. His job was simple but necessary. Humans could survive on Kale Rin only through constant vigilance. Every day brought a new challenge, whether it was a sudden sandstorm, a malfunctioning energy shield, or the occasional wild creature from the desert. Jace's hoverbike hummed beneath him as he started the engine. The twin thrusters glowed faint blue, lifting him slightly above the sand. He pushed off and sped across the dunes, the wind whipping past his face. Out here, alone with the desert, he felt a strange kind of freedom. The desert was unforgiving, but it rewarded those who respected it. As he crested a dune, Jace noticed movement ahead. A small figure crouched near a ridge, half hidden behind a rock. At first, he thought it was a wild scavenger, maybe one of the giant sand lizards that roamed the outer dunes. But as he approached, he realized it was a human, a girl, moving carefully, her dark hair blowing in the wind. She looked up and saw him. For a moment, their eyes met, and Jace sensed something different about her. She didn't carry the uniform of the outpost guards or the corporate technicians. She wore clothing that was practical for the desert. Soft leather and light fabrics, adorned with patterns that seemed to tell a story. There was a quiet strength in the way she stood, a confidence born of living close to the land. "Hey there," Jace called, slowing his hoverbike. "You're a long way from anywhere safe. Who are you?" The girl straightened and brushed sand from her clothes. "I'm Ayanna," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'm from the Apache clans. We moved through the desert. I wasn't expecting anyone out here." Jace dismounted, his boots sinking slightly into the soft sand. "The clans? You mean the ones near the southern ridges? I didn't think anyone left the settlements anymore. It's too dangerous." Ayanna's eyes scanned the horizon. "Danger is everywhere, but sometimes the desert keeps its secrets better than people do. That's why I'm here." Jace raised an eyebrow. "Secrets? What kind of secrets?" Jace raised an eyebrow. "Secrets?" Ayanna hesitated, then shook her head. "I can't explain yet. Not here. Follow me, if you want to understand. I mean, Ayanna, 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 Ayanna. I can't explains. I can't explains. I can't explains. I can't explains. I can't." Curiosity sparked. Jace nodded. He had spent most of his life exploring this desert, but something about Ayanna made him want to follow her. Without another word, she turned and ran lightly over the dunes. Jace followed, his hoverbike hovering close behind. They moved through a narrow canyon, its walls streaked with red and gold minerals that glittered in the sunlight. The canyon twisted and turned, creating shadows that danced across the sand. Birds with translucent wings glided high above, riding the thermal winds. The desert felt alive in a way that the outpost never could. Finally, they reached a hidden opening, nearly invisible behind a rock formation. Ayanna motioned for Jace to crouch. "This is it," she whispered. "You won't find it unless you know where to look." Jace leaned closer, peering into the darkness. Inside the opening was a small cavern, the walls lined with alien symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The symbols pulsed with a soft energy, as if the cave itself was alive. "What is this?" Jace asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is a place my people have protected for generations," Ayanna said. "The Apache clans call it the heart of the desert. No one from the settlements is supposed to know about it. But I found something here. Something important." She led him deeper into the cavern, her movements careful and precise. The air inside was cool and smelled faintly metallic, like a new kind of rain. As they walked, Jace noticed strange patterns on the walls, geometric shapes that seemed too complex to be natural. Some of the symbols glowed brighter as they passed, as if reacting to their presence. "What did you find?" Jace asked again, trying to keep his voice steady. Ayana paused and turned to him. Her eyes were serious, almost fearful. "An energy source," she said finally. "It's unlike anything humans have ever seen. I don't know where it came from, but it's powerful, dangerous, if handled wrong. That's why I had to tell someone. I can't hold it in any longer." Jace swallowed hard. He had heard stories of alien relics buried beneath the deserts of Cael Rin. But most were myths, exaggerated by time. Yet the glow of the cavern and the weight in Ayana's voice told him this was real. "Dangerous how?" he asked, his mind racing. Could it destroy the outpost?" Ayana nodded. "If it's triggered carelessly, yes. But I think humans can handle it, with the right knowledge and careful thinking. But I can't do it alone. I need your help." Jace looked at her, his heart pounding. He had faced sandstorms, mechanical failures, and even rogue scavengers. But nothing like this. Nothing that carried both danger and the possibility of discovery. "All right," he said finally. "I'll help. But we have to be smart about this. One wrong move, and we could lose everything." Ayana gave a small, relieved smile. "Thank you. I knew you would understand. That's why I had to say it now. I couldn't keep it hidden any longer." They spent the next hours studying the cavern, carefully observing the alien energy source. It pulsed like a heartbeat, casting strange shadows on the walls. The patterns seemed to shift when they looked at them, almost as if the symbols were alive. Jace took out his portable scanner, recording every detail. "This is incredible," he murmured. "Whatever this is, humans have never seen anything like it." Ayana nodded. "And that's why we have to be careful. If the wrong people find out, it could mean disaster. The corporate consortium would tear this place apart for profit." Jace clenched his fists. "Then we'll protect it, no matter what." For the first time, he realized that life in the outpost wasn't just about survival. It was about discovery, courage, and choosing to stand for something greater than himself. And in that moment, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders and the thrill of a new adventure he had never imagined. Outside, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the desert in a warm, blood-red glow. The wind howled through the canyon, carrying with it the whispers of an ancient world. Jace and Ayana stood together, two humans against the mysteries of the desert and the unknown legacy of a civilization long gone. The adventure had just begun. The night had fallen over Cael Rin, and the twin moons cast pale light across the endless dunes. The desert seemed quieter now. But Jace and Ayana both knew better. The sands could hide danger, and shadows often moved where no one expected. The two of them sat at the edge of the canyon entrance, studying the alien energy source they had found. "This is bigger than anything we've seen," Jace said, his fingers tracing the soft glow of the symbols on his portable scanner. "I mean, I've repaired old tech, modified hoverbikes, even survived a sandstorm that flattened half the settlement, but this is something else entirely." Ayana nodded, her eyes reflecting the pulsing light from the cavern. "I've been scouting deserts all my life. I've learned to recognize signs, follow tracks, and read the land. But this isn't natural. Whoever or whatever left this here had technology far beyond anything humans have ever built." Jace leaned back against a rock, staring at the symbols. "Do you think it's safe to touch? Or even get close?" She shook her head. "No. It responds to proximity. It feels almost alive. That's why I came here tonight. I needed someone who could think clearly. Someone who could help me study it without panicking." Jace glanced at her, surprised. "You trusted me?" Ayana's face softened, the shadows of the canyon flickering across her cheeks. "I did. I couldn't keep this secret alone. I had to tell someone who might understand. And I think you do. Jace's heart skipped a beat, but he pushed the feeling aside. There was work to be done. All right. So what's the plan? We study it, record data, and then what? We figure out what it is and how it works, Ayana replied. Then we decide whether it's safe for the settlement or if we need to hide it completely. And we have to be careful. If word of this gets out, the corporate consortium will send their mercenaries in a heartbeat. Jace gritted his teeth. The consortium. I knew they were ruthless, but I didn't think they'd stop at nothing. They won't, Ayana said. Not if they think there's profit involved. For a few hours, they explored the cavern together. Jace documented every symbol and energy reading, while Ayana used her instincts to find the safest paths through the tunnels. The energy source was concentrated in a chamber deeper inside, where strange crystals jutted from the walls like frozen lightning. They glowed softly, casting a spectrum of colors across the cavern floor. Jace ran his hands over one of the crystals. It feels warm, almost like it's breathing. Ayana nodded, her brow furrowed. It reacts to living things. The closer we are, the more energy it gives off. We need to be careful. One wrong move, and it could overload. They spent the rest of the night recording data and observing the patterns of the symbols. Jace couldn't help but marvel at the intelligence behind them. These symbols, they're like a language, he said, but not like any language I've ever seen. They're more like instructions, or a map. Ayana's eyes widened. A map? You think it could lead to something else? I don't know, Jace admitted, but I want to find out. They paused as a sudden gust of wind blew through the cavern entrance. The sound was eerie, almost like a whisper. Both of them froze. Listening, the desert could carry noises for miles, and at first, it seemed like nothing. But then they heard it again, a faint hum, like machinery coming to life. Ayana's eyes narrowed. We're not alone. Jace's hand went to the small plasma pistol at his belt, a precaution he rarely needed in the quiet desert. Who's out there? Ayana shook her head. I don't know, but we need to hide the crystals first, just in case. The energy source, it can be dangerous in the wrong hands. They moved quickly, covering the crystals with sand and debris. The hum outside grew louder, more distinct. Jace peeked through a crack in the rock wall. A group of figures appeared on the dune above the canyon. Human shapes, armed with advanced rifles and high-tech armor. The corporate consortium. They're here, Jace whispered. They know something's down here. Ayana's jaw tightened. Then we have to move fast. Follow me. She led him through a series of hidden tunnels, ones she had discovered as a child while exploring the desert. The tunnels twisted and turned, narrow in places and wide in others, finally emerging in a small hidden canyon far from the main outpost. The stars glittered above them, and the desert stretched endlessly in every direction. Jace wiped sweat from his forehead. We lost them, I think. Ayana nodded, but her expression remained serious. For now. But they'll come back. They always do. They set up a temporary camp, sitting by a small fire. Jace pulled out his scanner, reviewing the data they had collected. This is incredible, he said quietly. The energy here. It could power an entire settlement for years. Maybe even terraform parts of the desert faster than we ever could. Humans could do amazing things with this. Ayana's eyes softened as she looked at him. That's why it's so dangerous. If the consortium gets it, they won't care about life. They'll only care about profit. And this energy, it's alive, in a way. It could react badly to greed or carelessness. Jace nodded. Then we protect it. We use it wisely, and we make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. They talked late into the night, sharing stories of their lives in the desert. Jace spoke of the outpost, the settlers, and the long, lonely rides across the dunes. Ayana spoke of her clan, the Apache traditions, and the ways they had learned to survive in the harshest conditions. Despite the danger around them, a bond was forming a trust that went beyond words. As dawn approached, the first rays of the twin suns lit the desert in soft pinks and golds. Jace stretched, feeling the stiffness of the night. "We can't stay here," he said. "We need to get back to the outpost and figure out our next move. If the consortium comes looking, we can't be caught out here." Ayana agreed, "But we must return before anyone notices. We also need more information. If we understand the energy source fully, we can control it. And maybe even use it to protect the settlements, rather than just hide it." The journey back to Outpost Red Mesa was tense. Every dune looked like a potential hiding place for their pursuers. Jace rode the hoverbike with skill, scanning the horizon constantly. Ayana, riding beside him, pointed out tracks and warning signs that only someone who had grown up in the desert could notice. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the outpost. Jace's heart sank slightly at the sight of the settlement's walls. Life inside seemed so normal, so human, compared to the dangerous beauty of the desert they had just navigated. Yet he knew that the ordinary lives of the settlers depended on the extraordinary courage of people like him and now, Ayana. "We have to be careful," Ayana said quietly as they stopped near the outpost's entrance. "If we tell anyone else about the energy source too soon, it could end badly. We need a plan. And we need allies we can trust." Jace nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "We'll figure it out, together." As they entered the settlement, the sun rose fully over the desert, casting long shadows behind the buildings and vehicles. The twin suns reflected off the metal surfaces of the outpost, shining like mirrors. Humanity had carved a home from the harshest of deserts. And now, Jace realized, it was up to humans to protect it and perhaps, with courage and wisdom, to unlock mysteries the universe had left behind. And somewhere deep in the desert, the hidden energy pulsed silently, waiting for the humans who dared to understand it. The desert of Kael Rin was alive with movement under the twin suns. The heat radiated off the sand, making the dunes shimmer like golden waves. Jace and Ayana rode side by side on their hoverbikes, scanning the horizon for any sign of the corporate consortium. They knew the mercenaries would not give up easily, and the hidden energy source in the canyon made them a target. Jace's hand rested on the throttle, eyes sharp. "I don't like this," he said. "They'll find us sooner or later. We need a plan that keeps both the energy source and ourselves safe." Ayana nodded, her gaze scanning the desert. "I've been thinking. We can use the canyon tunnels to our advantage. The consortium knows only the main paths. They won't expect the twists and turns we know so well. But we have to be smart. One mistake, and it could all be over." As they rode, the desert seemed peaceful, almost serene. But Jace knew better. Even a single misstep could mean disaster. He trusted Ayana's instincts. They had already saved him more than once, but he also knew that technology and human cunning would be their greatest weapons against the consortium. Hours later, they reached the outskirts of the canyon, where the energy source lay hidden. They dismounted, scanning the area for signs of intrusion. The sand was undisturbed. A rare moment of calm. Jace knelt, brushing the sand aside from a small crystal fragment. "Everything seems normal. For now." Ayana crouched beside him. "We should check the tunnels. Make sure no one has followed us." They moved carefully through the hidden passageways. The air inside the cavern was cooler, filled with the soft hum of the energy crystals. Each step seemed to echo, and the light from the crystals pulsed faintly as if sensing their presence. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the far wall. Both of them froze. "Who's there?" Jace called, his voice low but firm. No reply came, only the faint sound of shifting sand. Ayana's hand went to her side, where she kept a small pulse knife, a weapon designed for close combat in tight spaces. "Stay close," she whispered. "It could be one of them." They advanced carefully, following the movement. To their relief and their surprise, they found only a desert fox, its white fur blending perfectly with the light sand. The tension eased, but it reminded them how vigilant they had to be. "We can't let our guard down," Jace said, brushing sweat from his forehead. "Not for a second." Ayanna nodded. "Agreed. Let's focus on stabilizing the energy source. If we can control it, we might be able to turn it into a defensive advantage." Jace's eyes widened. "You mean, use it against the consortium?" "Yes," Ayanna said. "We can't fight them head-on. But if we understand the energy, we can outsmart them. Humans are good at that thinking. Improvising, adapting. That's how we survive." They worked together through the day, analyzing the crystals and studying the alien symbols. The energy source was unlike anything Jace had ever encountered. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, and the symbols seemed to respond to their presence. "Look at this," Jace said, pointing to a series of glyphs that shifted under the light of their scanners. "It's almost like it's alive. The symbols move when we get close." Ayanna's eyes widened. "Then we must be careful. One wrong step could trigger something dangerous." As they continued, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the cavern floor. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from outside. A series of sharp, metallic clangs, followed by the distant hum of engines. Jace's eyes snapped toward the entrance. "They're here. The consortium found us." Ayanna's expression hardened. "We need to act fast. Follow me." They moved through the narrow tunnels, using hidden paths only they knew. Outside, the consortium's hovercrafts appeared on the dunes, scanning for any sign of the energy source. Jace could see the glint of armor and weapons from the distance. "We can't outrun them," Jace said, urgency in his voice. "But maybe we can trap them." Ayanna nodded. "Exactly. This canyon has natural choke points. We can use the terrain and the energy source to our advantage. It's risky, but it's our best shot." They set their plan in motion. Using the alien crystals, Ayanna manipulated the energy pulses to create a temporary barrier in the narrow canyon entrance. The crystals glowed brighter, and a wave of energy surged forward, creating a dazzling wall of light. The consortium's hovercrafts halted, their sensors disrupted by the sudden energy surge. The mercenaries shouted commands into their radios, but the canyon interfered with communication. "This is our chance," Jace said. "We move now." They raced through the tunnels, leading the consortium's forces deeper into the canyon, where Jace had set a series of clever traps. Loose rocks, hidden pits, and narrow ledges forced the mercenaries to slow down and navigate carefully. The desert had become their ally, and human ingenuity was guiding the way. The energy crystals pulsed in response to their movement, as if cooperating with them. Jace marveled at the moment humans, working with the alien technology, creating something the original creators might never have imagined. As the sun set, casting the desert in a warm, fiery glow, they reached the deepest part of the canyon. Jace and Ayanna stopped, breathing heavily but determined. "Now," Ayanna said, her eyes locked on the energy source. She carefully adjusted a crystal, sending a concentrated beam of energy toward the canyon entrance. The light was blinding, and the mercenaries were forced to retreat temporarily, giving them the advantage. Jace smiled. "It worked. We did it." Ayanna looked at him, a mix of relief and admiration in her eyes. "We did. Humans, we're stronger than we think. Not because of weapons, but because we can think, adapt, and use what we have to survive." For the first time, Jace felt the weight of humanity's potential in the stars. Here, in a dangerous desert on a distant planet, they were not just surviving, they were shaping the future. But even as they celebrated their small victory, the desert remained unpredictable. The consortium would return, and the energy source would demand more careful study. There was no time to rest. Jace and Ayanna set up a temporary base deep within the canyon, where the energy crystals could be monitored safely. They spent the night recording data, refining their understanding of the alien technology, and planning their next move. "You know," Jace said, staring at the glowing crystals, "we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to discover here. And humans, we're just getting started." Ayanna nodded, her face illuminated by the pulsing light. Then we keep going. Together. Whatever comes next, we face it. We survive. We protect. And we learn. Wud. Fiver. The night passed with the gentle hum of the energy source filling the canyon. Outside, the desert was quiet, but it held secrets waiting to be revealed. And deep inside, two humans, one a young cowboy, the other an Apache scout, stood ready to face whatever the universe sent next. For Jace, it was not just about survival anymore. It was about discovery, courage, and the remarkable power of humans working together against impossible odds. And somewhere, deep in the desert, the energy pulsed again, responding to their presence, as if the canyon itself acknowledged the spark of humanity that had arrived. The sun rose slowly over the desert of Cale Rin, painting the dunes in shades of gold and orange. The air was cooler in the canyon, but the pulsing energy of the crystals seemed to warm the space with its soft glow. Jace and Ayanna had spent the night reviewing the data they had collected, discussing ways to stabilize the energy source and keep it safe from the corporate consortium. But beneath the tension of survival, another feeling grew. Unspoken but impossible to ignore. Ayanna often glanced at Jace while he worked, and Jace found himself noticing the smallest movements she made, the way her eyes narrowed in concentration. The subtle determination in her voice. Both were aware of it, but neither had spoken yet. Finally, Ayanna broke the silence. Jace, I need to tell you something. I've been holding it in for too long. Jace looked up from his scanner, curiosity and concern flashing in his eyes. What is it? RY. She took a deep breath, her fingers brushing over one of the smaller crystals. It's not just about the energy source. It's about me. About how I feel. I can't keep pretending I don't care. Not when everything we're doing is so dangerous. I trust you. And I care about you. Jace froze, his heart pounding. He hadn't expected this moment. Even with the bond that had been growing between them over the past days, he felt a warmth spread through him, a mix of admiration, respect, and something deeper. Ayanna, he said softly, searching for the right words. Before he could finish, the cavern trembled with a distant, powerful rumble. The energy source pulsed violently, as if reacting to the emotions in the room. Jace grabbed her hand instinctively. Hold on, something's happening. They watched in awe as the crystal's glow intensified. Beams of light shooting through the cavern walls. The symbols on the rock surfaces shifted, forming patterns that neither of them had seen before. The air crackled with energy, and the sound of humming filled every corner of the canyon. It's responding to us, Ayanna whispered. Maybe it feels what we're feeling. Jace's mind raced. This was beyond anything human technology could do. It was alien. Alive in a way humans could only begin to understand. And yet, it responded not to fear, but to trust, courage, and connection, the very qualities that had allowed humans to survive and thrive in the harshest conditions. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the canyon entrance. Dust and sand sprayed into the air, and the sound of shouting reached them. The corporate consortium had returned, more determined than ever. Jace and Ayanna exchanged a quick glance. There was no time to process the emotions fully. Action was required. They're here, Jace said, his voice steady despite the tension. We need to defend the energy source. And we need a plan. Ayanna nodded, determination returning to her eyes. We can do this. We know the canyon. We know the energy. And we know each other. That's more than they have. Jace quickly outlined a strategy. We'll use the tunnels to confuse them. The energy crystals can create barriers and distractions. And we'll set traps along the way, rocks, narrow ledges, and hidden pits. We have to be smart, not just strong. Ayanna adjusted a small panel on one of the crystals, directing its energy toward the canyon entrance. A shimmering barrier of light formed, bright and nearly blinding. The consortium's hovercrafts faltered, and their soldiers hesitated, giving Jace and Ayanna the upper hand. They moved swiftly through the tunnels, luring the mercenaries into traps they had prepared. Each turn, each hidden crevice, worked to their advantage. Jace marveled at how seamlessly they coordinated, a human team acting in perfect synchronization. HFY had never felt so alive, humans outthinking and outmaneuvering superior technology with brains, skill, and courage. At one point, a mercenary managed to bypass a trap and aimed a weapon directly at Jace. Ayana reacted instantly, adjusting a crystal to emit a burst of energy that knocked the mercenary off balance without harming him. Jace's pulse quickened. "You saved me," he said, both awed and grateful. "We save each other," Ayana replied, her eyes meeting his. There was no need for more words. In that moment, the bond between them strengthened, further trust, respect, and unspoken feelings merging into something powerful. The fight continued as the sun climbed higher. The consortium realized brute force would not work here. They began to retreat, cautious of the energy pulses and the traps in the canyon. Jace and Ayana had won this round, but they both knew it was temporary. The consortium would return, more prepared, more ruthless. As the dust settled, Jace leaned against a rock, catching his breath. That was close. Too close. Ayana placed a hand on his shoulder. "We survived. And we learned something important: humans can face impossible odds and still win. Not because of weapons, but because of courage and clever thinking." Jace nodded, feeling pride swell in his chest. "You're right. HFY. Humanity can do amazing things. Even in the face of danger." They returned to the energy crystals, carefully stabilizing the pulses. Jace noticed that the symbols were now glowing in a calmer rhythm, almost as if the canyon itself was approving of their actions. He marveled at the fact that human emotions, trust, courage, and connection might have influenced the energy. Ayana watched him silently for a moment, then spoke softly. "Jace, I'm glad we faced this together. Not just because we survived, but because we understand each other better now." Jace smiled. "Me too. And, Ayana, I feel the same way. I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't. I care about you. I trust you. And I want to face whatever comes next with you." For a brief moment, the canyon was filled with something more powerful than alien energy: human connection, hope, and courage. The pulsing crystals reflected their bond, casting a soft, warm glow that seemed to stretch into the desert outside. But even in this moment of peace, Jace and Ayana knew that their challenges were far from over. The corporate consortium would return, and the energy source still held secrets they had yet to uncover. They would need to combine human ingenuity, courage, and unity to face what was coming next. "We have a plan," Jace said, finally breaking the silence. "We protect the energy, we prepare the canyon, and we study the crystals. When the consortium comes back, we'll be ready." Ayana nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "And we'll face it together. Whatever happens, we survive, we protect, and we prove that humans, our kind, can rise to any challenge." The twin suns climbed higher, illuminating the canyon in bright light. The desert stretched endlessly beyond. A harsh but beautiful world full of secrets and opportunities. Jace and Ayana knew they had only begun to understand it, but they also knew that together, they were stronger than any threat. As they worked to stabilize the crystals and prepare the canyon defenses, a new thought crossed Jace's mind. Humans had survived deserts, storms, alien worlds, and now they were standing against forces that would have overwhelmed others. But with courage, ingenuity, and trust, humanity could face the unknown, and even shape it in ways no one else could. Ayana noticed his thoughtful expression and smiled. "What are you thinking?" "That humans aren't just survivors," Jace said, voice filled with quiet awe. "We're explorers, protectors, and problem solvers. We can do things that no other species could. And I think we're just getting started." She reached for his hand again, and this time, there was no hesitation. "Then let's keep going." Together, for a moment, they simply sat in the canyon, listening to the soft hum of the energy crystals and feeling the warmth of the desert sun. The world was dangerous, unpredictable, and full of mysteries, but it was theirs to face, and they were ready. The energy pulsed steadily now, calm and contained. A promise of power and knowledge, waiting to be understood. And somewhere deep in the canyon, hidden from the eyes of the corporate consortium, two humans stood ready, united, courageous, and unstoppable. The desert of Kael Rin was unusually quiet that morning. The twin suns rose slowly over the dunes, bathing the canyon in soft golden light. Jace and Ayanna stood at the edge of their hidden base, scanning the horizon for any sign of the corporate consortium. They had prepared as best as they could, traps set, energy crystals stabilized, and every narrow tunnel mapped with precision. Yet both knew the final confrontation was inevitable. "They'll come back," Jace said, his voice steady but tense. "They won't give up until they have the energy source." Ayanna nodded, her hand resting on one of the glowing crystals. "We've done everything we can. Now it's up to us." And the desert. The air trembled with a faint vibration, and then a low roar echoed across the dunes. Jace spotted movement in the distance. Hovercrafts approaching fast, kicking up clouds of red sand. The corporate consortium had returned, this time with more troops, more weapons, and more confidence. Jace took a deep breath. "Stay calm. Stick to the plan. We can do this." Ayanna's eyes shone with determination. "We have to. For the outpost, for the clans, and for the energy source itself. Humans can face anything if we think, adapt, and fight smart." As the first hovercrafts entered the canyon, they triggered the traps Jace and Ayanna had prepared. Rocks shifted, pits opened, and narrow ledges forced the consortium forces to slow down. Beams of energy from the crystals flashed through the canyon, creating dazzling barriers that disrupted the hovercraft's sensors. The consortium soldiers shouted in frustration, trying to navigate the treacherous terrain, but the canyon's twists and turns worked in Jace and Ayanna's favor. Every movement they made was precise, a dance of human ingenuity and survival instinct. "Keep moving," Jace shouted, leading Ayanna through a hidden passage that dropped sharply into a lower canyon. The sound of shouting and crashing machinery echoed behind them, but the path was clear. Ayanna adjusted the energy crystals along the walls, sending pulses of light that confused the intruders even further. "They're not ready for this," she called. "They don't know the desert like we do." Jace smiled briefly, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "That's humanity's advantage. Thinking, improvising, and never giving up." They emerged at a narrow canyon ledge overlooking the main entrance. From there, they could see the consortium struggling with the traps. Ayanna activated a series of crystals in sequence, creating a wave of energy that formed a glowing barrier across the canyon floor. The mercenaries tried to advance, but their hovercrafts faltered and came to a halt. Jace turned to her. Now, using the canyon's natural choke points, they guided the consortium forces toward a deep ravine. Rocks and sand shifted under carefully timed energy pulses, forcing the enemy to slow, stumble, and retreat. Each move showcased human adaptability, the ability to use intelligence, skill, and courage rather than relying solely on technology. The consortium realized brute force would not succeed. They tried to outmaneuver the canyon, but the traps and pulses of energy left them disoriented. Jace and Ayanna used their knowledge of the terrain to stay one step ahead, turning the canyon into a fortress. At the critical moment, a large hovercraft broke through the barrier, heading straight for the crystals. Jace grabbed Ayanna's hand. "We can't let it reach the energy source." Ayanna nodded. Together, they adjusted the largest crystal, directing a concentrated beam of energy toward the hovercraft. The beam struck it, forcing it to spin uncontrollably and slide to a stop at the edge of a pit. The mercenaries inside scrambled out, unarmed and confused. Jace and Ayanna pressed forward, guiding the remaining forces away from the energy source with strategic pulses and barriers. The canyon, alive with alien energy, seemed to respond to their courage, intelligence, and determination. Finally, after hours of careful maneuvering and clever use of the crystals, the consortium's forces retreated, their hovercrafts disappearing over the dunes. The canyon returned to calm, and the soft hum of the energy crystals filled the air once more. Jace slumped against a rock, exhaustion and relief mixing in his chest. "We did it," he said quietly. Ayana placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes. Humans can survive anything. When we work together. We've proven it again." They approached the energy crystals, now glowing steadily and calmly. Jace knelt and touched one gently. "It's alive, in a way, and we're part of it now." Ayana smiled. "It's not just about survival, Jace. It's about understanding, protecting, and using what we discover wisely. Humans have that ability. That's why we can triumph, even against superior technology." Jace looked at her, feeling a deep sense of connection. "And I couldn't have done it without you. Not just your skills, but your courage and your trust." Ayana's eyes softened. "We faced it together, and together, we'll continue to face whatever comes next." The desert outside the canyon was quiet again, but it shimmered with possibility. The energy crystals pulsed gently, a reminder of both the danger and the promise they held. Jace and Ayana knew they had only begun to understand it, but they also knew that humans courageous, creative, and united could face anything the universe placed before them. They spent the rest of the day recording and studying the energy source, stabilizing it further to ensure it could not be accidentally triggered. Jace realized that humans were not just survivors in the harsh deserts of Kael Rin. They were explorers, problem solvers, and protectors of knowledge. And with Ayana by his side, he felt that no challenge was too great. By evening, they sat together at the canyon's edge, watching the twin suns sink behind distant dunes. The desert stretched endlessly, a harsh but beautiful world full of secrets and possibilities. Jace and Ayana shared a quiet moment of triumph, knowing they had not only protected the energy source but also strengthened the bond between themselves. "This is just the beginning," Jace said, gazing at the horizon. "There are more mysteries, more challenges, and we'll face them. Humans can rise to anything, Ayana." "We always do." Ayana nodded, resting her head briefly against his shoulder. "And we'll do it together. Whatever comes, we survive, we protect, and we grow stronger." The energy crystals pulsed once more, their light gentle and steady, as if acknowledging their success. Somewhere, deep in the desert, the hidden power waited patiently, now in the hands of humans who respected it and could use it wisely. And in that moment, Jace felt it clearly. Humanity was not just surviving in the universe. They were leaving their mark. Through courage, ingenuity, and unity, they could face dangers, unlock secrets, and triumph against any odds. The twin moons rose high over the canyon, reflecting light off the energy crystals, and the desert seemed to whisper with promise. Jace and Ayana looked at each other, knowing that together, they could face the unknown, protect what mattered, and continue to prove that humans ordinary, yet extraordinary, could accomplish the impossible. For the first time, the canyon felt like home not just because of survival, but because of the strength, trust, and connection that defined humans. The energy crystals pulsed gently, a silent promise that the future was theirs to shape. And as the desert night settled, Jace and Ayana stood ready for whatever came next, confident that humanity, united and courageous, could triumph in the stars.